everyone, it's Kelly from Zinni Mead, and today's Starting a Counseling podcast episode, we are joined by Lisa Heading. She is a registered intern in Oregon in private practice, and she's going to share some things about building her practice with a soft start, but a really clear niche. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So you moved to Oregon right around the time that the pandemic started. And one of the things that you specialize in is art, integrating art therapy into your work.
Mm-hmm.
What has that been like? How have you had to adjust that with the pandemic and going virtual?
So specifically, I work with Expressive Art Therapy. So it's the umbrella of all of the creative arts together, and so movement, dance, movement and dance, it's kind of the same thing. Movement, sound, creative writing, visual art, just anything that can be creative. Like, you could be making nature mandalas outside, or, haven't been doing that. But a couple of the things that I have found that I've needed to adjust on is I'm working from home now and seeing clients virtually in their homes. So on my intake form, I have a question that I ask, like, what supplies do you have access to? I mean, most people have at least like pen and paper or something, but basic things. And also with being on camera, I can't. Typically, people only have one camera, so I can't watch them as they're creating their process. It's still nice. I can have a conversation and such, and I can observe them as they're working, but I have to wait until it's like, okay, are you ready to share with me? And they show it up to the camera. So that's a little bit of a, I don't want to say disconnect necessarily, but it does make things a little bit different than if I were there sitting next to them and seeing the image unfold. So
I think also one of the things you touch on is how when you have a niche, it does change your process. It changes how you do the assessment. It changes the questions you ask so that you can provide better treatment and interventions with each person. I think of that as a beautiful example of that. So being a registered intern and starting private practice, what has that been like for you? Before we had started recording, you had mentioned like how you've been in practice for about a year, but it's been really like a soft start. So can you talk a little bit about that journey?
So like we said before, I had moved to Oregon right at the start of the pandemic. So when I arrived, I had it in my head what things were going to look like and what starting a practice was going to look like. That, I would be looking for an office, setting that up, looking for furniture, all that kind of stuff. And then it became very clear that that was not going to happen at first. So there was a little bit of time where I wasn't sure as a registered intern, like what I was going to be allowed to do, like would I be allowed to do telehealth and everything. So I did a little bit of training for telehealth certification kind of things, and safety, all that, to make sure that I was up on what I needed to know.
And so when you are building your practice, do you find that creativity and that intuition shows up often for you?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I'm pretty good about having my vision changes, it morphs, but I'm pretty good about having a vision for what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm not sure about the vision, using expressive arts to sort of guide me to exploring options about the vision, or how I want it to change, or develop, or how it needs to change because of other things that are going on in my life or in the world around me. So
yeah. What is the growth edge? Where are you pushing yourself to learn or develop as a business owner? What's next for you?
That's a good question. I think, well, one thing I was thinking about earlier today is like reassessing my fees, because I know I had it in my I had it in my head rather, when I would be raising my fees and what I would be raising them to, but now I'm kind of wondering if I need to adjust that and do it sooner, or so I want to, one of the next things is to kind of look at my fees again and see what I want to do, because I do want to keep a couple of, like, I don't know if I want to call it sliding scale, but a couple of lower fee slots. And so that has become important to me. So I need to assess the other fees.
So what kind of wisdom do you have to share with people who are wanting to start their private practice, and maybe they do out of the box work? They're not necessarily traditional talk therapist, or they have a modality that's a little creative. Well, what do you have to say to them?
Like I said all the time in boot camp, stand out. It's perfectly fine to stand out. You don't have to blend in. Know or find out what your strengths are and play to those. We're all different as people, as therapists, etc. And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I think it would be, I personally think it would be boring if we were all the same. And the clients are not all the same, so why should the therapists be? Yeah, play to your strengths.
I love that. That's great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what's to come in the private practice arena for you.
Me
Thank you for sharing a bit of your story with this community.